A play fake. Young goes deep middle. He's got Jerry Rice. Touchdown 49ers!
Welcome to another edition of the 49ers Family Podcast, where three generations of 49ers fans break down the game each week and hear from Grandpa Mike as he shares personal experiences since he became a fan in 1949. Well, I'm excited for another episode of 49ers Family. I will be honest, I'm not very excited to break down the game. We all in the last episode talked about how, Denver, specifically, Russell Wilson, they haven't shown out, but they found a way to stay in those games, even though when their offense was sputtering. And man, did they find a way to stay in this game. And the Niners just didn't take care of business, didn't take advantage of their opportunities. Grandpa, how are you feeling? I know you ride or die with these guys.
Well, Grandpa's not well, Josh.
Oh.
Late Sunday night, I had to check into suicide prevention. I don't know if you knew there was a suicide prevention down on Jefferson in Temecula. But they just let me out for this podcast. So I've got something around my ankle. I think they're tracking me. Anyway, the game, it was an embarrassment. It was on national TV. It was just a disgrace. I mean, there's not enough lipstick to make this pig presentable. We scored 10 points in 2 of our 3 games. And Kyle is a genius offensively. We're not scoring. We have the players. And it's just very frustrating. We're 1 for 10 on 3rd downs. We had 3 rushing first downs, turned the ball over 3 times. The safety stepping out of the end zone, you got to know where you are. I mean, we lost by 1 point.
1 point.
Very, very frustrating to me. We scored 3 points in the final 53 minutes. And that's just deplorable.
It is.
I'm down in the dumps.
Yeah, Dad, how are you feeling?
I'm disappointed. I mean, I really thought we should have won that game. It was a kind of just a slugfest, a defensive battle. I didn't realize how good defensively Denver is, even ranked defensively. It was a defensive battle. We couldn't move the ball. We turned the ball over 3 times. That was the difference in the game, really, statistically, as you look at us on paper. Garoppolo and Wilson. Garoppolo statistically had actually a slightly better game than Wilson, on paper. Turning over the ball gave Denver more time of possession. They had like 34 minutes. We had 26 minutes. When you give up the ball, you don't get to control the clock. And in a tight game like this, it was a 1-point game. Turnovers are humongous. So it was slated to be a low-scoring game, even by those who know. But I figured we were going to be able to light it up a little bit offensively with our skilled positions. But defensively, slugfest, 3 turnovers. To me, Jimmy G made a couple little mistakes, but statistically, looking at his body of work, it wasn't as ugly as it looked when we saw the game. But 1 point, we had every opportunity to do it. We just couldn't get her done.
Couldn't get her done. Yeah, no, I agree with a lot of points you just said. Really, it comes down to taking advantage of opportunities. And the Niners defense, they did their job. They held them to 3.7 yards per play. I saw something on Twitter that said the 85 Bears that are known for their stout defense, they allowed something like 4.1, yards per play that entire season. And the fact that the Niners have lost 2 games while holding the opposing offense to less than 4 yards per play, it shines a light on the offense of the Niners, that the Niners offense is struggling. And it is very confusing. It's like, what the heck? Kyle is supposed to be this offensive genius, but why aren't things clicking? Last week, Jimmy G said it was like riding a bike, and now this week he said he's rusty. I mean, it's all whatever. But it is definitely concerning. I did not think that we would be 1-2 after the first 3 games this season. If anything, I thought we'd be 3-0 or 2-1. But it's still early. It's a marathon of a season. Grandpa, you and I were talking about how really there's a lot of parity in the NFL right now. That this whole entire, even the Bengals are not looking that good right now. So that went to the Super Bowl last year. So, we find ourselves 1-2. We should be okay. The only problem is that we're headed into the hardest part of the schedule. But before we get to that, looking more at the box score, some things that really, jumped out at me were obviously the third down conversions. We were 0 for 9 before converting on our 10th. That was a nice throw by Jimmy, but it just, the whole entire time, both offenses, honestly, besides the second drive that the Niners had, the whole game was just ugly and just a complete punt fest. If
It was a good punt fest too. I mean, that was worth the price of admission, to be honest with you. Special teams and punting. I mean, geez.
It's true. It's true. Grandpa, what were some of your other thoughts? On the game and then going forward.
Yeah, Jimmy missed some open receivers. That concerns me. The offensive line, I mean, there was a lot of pressure on Jimmy, and especially after Trent Williams went down. That concerns me going forward. We've got to win this game against the Rams. We can't go 1-3 and expect to have a playoff type season. So we're digging a hole. There's so many things that we really haven't played anybody yet, and we're 1-2. And we've scored 10 points in 2 of those games, and it just baffles me. I don't really understand it. I'm starting to question Kyle Shanahan, and he's known as this genius, and this creates all this movement on offense, but we don't score any points,
right?
And so
it
we
is
gotta break out of this.
It is starting to have people question Kyle, because a couple things, more about the box score and just getting utilization and kind of just trying to understand what happened. Deebo Samuel, that for the first 2 games of the season was averaging over 6 yards a carry. He only had 5 attempts for 6 yards. Ouch. And that honestly scares me, because it makes me wonder, did Denver figure out something that now the rest of the other teams are going to try and replicate? It worries me, because they were doubling Deebo all day long, and Jimmy was trying to force it to Ayuk, or trying to force it to freaking Deebo Samuel when he's triple covered, and it resulted in an interception. That was just a very dumb throw.
Denver made a conscious decision to take Deebo out of the game. So they had 2 guys on him all night, and they took him out of the game.
Yeah.
So he was open a couple of times, but Belichick does that. That's what his claim to fame is. Whoever he plays, he takes their star out of the game, and you've got to go to number 2. He used to do that against Jerry Rice, and all of a sudden Jerry Rice had 1 catch for 6 yards. And that's what wins games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Kyle, we'll see. And we'll talk about a little bit more about the Rams game, of course. But Kyle historically has done well against the Rams and Aaron Donald, because he schemes away from him and finds ways to take Aaron Donald out of the game. NFC Championship was a good, example of that. He was nowhere to be seen on the stat sheet because he wasn't around the ball until he got around the ball in the fourth quarter, and we know how that ended. But it is a little concerning. It's early in the season. I think there is some rust from Jimmy not being around the receivers, the team, everything. I mean, when's the last time that you literally have a guy that didn't practice with the team, wasn't throwing to the receivers, and then starting in the second week of the season, he's the starter? Like,
yeah.
I
understand. Go ahead.
I was going to say, this is Jimmy G's preseason. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, he came out kind of just out of the chute. Last game had to pick up for Trey, and I did a fine job. This game was kind of like a starting game, and it was like a preseason for him. He's literally getting used to the offense and kind of working out the rust. I really did love that second drive. It was all the just quick passes, within a second, the ball was out of his hands. It was single looks. He didn't have to go through his progressions at all. It was quick, bam, bam, bam. I love that. I mean, I felt like, man, we are moving the ball and we're mixing up a little run here and there. So I think that is actually what a lot of scheming that I think Shanahan's going to use with Garoppolo a little bit. But I think, it looked awful to watch, but again, looking statistically at what happened, we're disappointed we didn't put the points on the board. But I'm still very optimistic, and we're only 3 games into the season. Right. And I'm excited to play the Rams, to be honest with you. I think we match up real well. And the Rams are a different team this year. I mean, they really are. Looking over their stats and where they're at, it's going to be a good matchup. But box score wise, I just stands out to me again was the turnovers. Our defense played very well. And Hafunga was flying all over. I mean, I got a lot of information on our defense, but yeah, they're killing it right now. So
they're killing it. But let's talk about that for a second. They're killing it with in regards to yards per play and 3 and outs. They had how many 3 and outs? But what they are lacking is turnovers, and that was something that we expected to see more of, especially coming out of training camp. There were a lot of turnovers. Our defense is forcing a lot of turnovers. And maybe that now shines a light on the fact that maybe the offense was giving up more turnovers than the defense was earning those turnovers, because just 2 turnovers forced within the first 3 games. I think we all know how much turnovers can affect a game, and especially in a low scoring game, especially in this game that we gave them 3 and we weren't able to get any. If one of those falls our way, especially that one where Charvarius Ward, I think, punches the ball out, and I was just like, I think it was inside the 5-yard line. That's a game-changing play. That's huge. And if I remember correctly, they then drove down the field. I think they got to about midfield and flipped it, and we started. And that might have been when we got pinned on the one and ended up in the safety. So those things, man. We got to find a way to force those turnovers. The yards per play is great, and the way that they're playing is great, but we need some of those, especially to help out the offense.
So when you look at the box score, everything is really very even, including the score, 11-10, except for one, and that's number of plays. And that's what the turnovers do. So Denver had 70 plays, we had 52.
Yep.
And it just, that's putting too much pressure on the defense. They were phenomenal. I mean, just phenomenal. Our defense is going to be just outstanding all year, and it's going to be fun to watch them against the Rams, because what's really improved is our pass defense with Ward and Hufanga. But so this Monday night is going to be a classic.
Yeah,
I'm excited to see Kittle get involved. Kittle, this is his first game back. I think he had 4 receptions, I mean, a total of like 28 yards or something like that. So he's, coming back from his groin injury. He's going to be another weapon. I think Jimmy G, that's somebody kind of dragging across the middle or whatever, but it's going to be a nice outlet. Get Kittle involved. Ayuk, we are stacked. I mean, if we can get the ball in Ayuk's hands or Debo's hands. Wilson, I like, he runs hard. He's doing great. And then we got Kittle now back as a weapon. So I'm excited. Defensively, just talking about more stats. I mean, we only allowed 2.8 yards per rush, through 3 games of the season defensively. That's a huge statistic. We've only allowed, we only allow 148 yards passing per game statistically. Number 2 ranked defense in the NFL. I mean, these guys are just shutting people down. And the Rams don't run the ball very well at all. They've really struggled with Henderson and I forget who else, but they're a passing team. So, and we are strong on the front line, defensive end. We got Bosa and Epicom and those guys. And plus we got the secondary. I mean, it is a really tough team to pass against.
We have to do something about Cooper Kupp.
Oh yeah, we'll shut him down. Yeah, that'll be what they did to Debo, we're gonna do to Kupp. Yeah. Kupp's got he's got 4 of their 7 touchdowns for the season, or is he 7?
He just gets open, but the way he gets open, he primarily lines up in the slot. And so the nickel back is guarding him, and that's usually a team's 5th best cover man. And he just leaves them behind. So Cooper Kupp is a weapon, and that's the guy we've got to take out of the game.
You shut him down. He's got 4 of their 7 touchdowns for the season. I mean, he's got over 50% of the load of touchdowns. And then there's 3 other touchdowns in the whole season. Cooper Kupp is the key. That's the only thing they have going right now. I'll be honest with you. Looking at their stats, that's all they got.
Yeah, and last year he's phenomenal. I mean, he's tough, he's quick, he's elusive, he gets open. He has me scratching my head all the time. It's like, how do you get open? But he does. So, but what you do, like when they take Debo out of the game by doubling him, then somebody else has single coverage, and you go to that guy and make him pay. So, it'll be interesting to see what the matchup is with Cooper Kupp. So anyway,
yeah, it's interesting.
On we go.
Yeah. And, as we kind of started to talk about the Rams, obviously, we have this saying on this podcast that we're losing a starter a game. Hate to see Trent Williams go down with a high ankle sprain, projected to be out 4 to 6 weeks. That will depend on how his recovery goes. That could be 6 to 8 weeks. He will be back, just a matter of time. And then as well as Azeez Al-Shire is going to be out 2 months with an MCL sprain. Yep. Don't like to see that. Dre Greenlaw and Fred Warner do a good job, but Azeez Al-Shire is a good 3rd linebacker when they bring him in. So we'll see that. We should be okay on that side. But I am, and I want to get you guys' thoughts on this. What do we do at left tackle? Trent Williams is definitely, arguably, but I'm biased, so definitely the best left tackle in the game. Yep. And I don't think we're prepared to fill that spot for 6 weeks. I'm nervous. They were killing Jalen Moore and then killing Colton McKivitz.
Right.
So what do we do?
Well, I mean, you got to go with what you have, and that's what we have. And what's going to happen is Kittle's
going to be over there. Yeah, he's going
to do a lot of blocking. But when Trent Williams went down, his 2 replacements, Jalen Moore and Colton McKivitz, they had 12 pass blocking plays after Williams went down, and they allowed 2 sacks. I mean, not good. Mm-hmm. So I'm nervous as well, Josh. I mean, we've got basically a new center, 2 new guards, and now a new left tackle. That's
and our backup quarterback. That and this is his blind side. So you like we said last week. Now you got to guard Jimmy G with your life, because if he goes down, this is not a Super Bowl roster without a capable quarterback. Even after a bad game in Jimmy G can still take us there. I do not think Brock Purdy is going to take us to the Super Bowl.
Jimmy G is going to be fine. He is, rusty. He's not game ready. But one of the thing about Jimmy G, he knows the playbook.
Yeah.
And it's a very complicated playbook. If you brought in Joe Bag of Donuts, we were, they'd be totally lost. Jimmy knows the playbook. He does have to sharpen his skills. And, Kyle said that Kittle and Jimmy just, aren't game ready. So anyway, we have to be ready on Monday night. And for whatever reason, when McVay came into the league as a head coach and Shanahan at the same time, Shanahan owns McVay. And, but McVay has a much better record. So anyway, we've played really well against the Rams since these coaches the last 6 years. And let's just hope that continues on Monday night. We're favored to win.
Yeah. Let's talk about that. So Monday night football. We all love Monday night football. We'll talk about that in a second. It's at home, Levi Stadium. Kickoff is at 5:15 Pacific time. Get to have Joe Buck and Troy Aikman on the call. Now they're with ESPN and not Fox. It's kind of funny to hear them on Monday Night Football after hearing them with Fox for so long. It's going to be a great weather forecast, a beautiful night for some football. And as you said, Niners are favored right now by 1.5 points, which is surprising coming off of the loss. But also you look statistically, and I say that's a fair estimate. I think we're actually a good matchup for this game, and they're going to give us a few points for home field advantage. But to me, it's about a toss up. If not, the Niners have a little bit of an advantage, and that's what the spread is saying.
So if we win this game, we're 2-2, and the Rams are 2-2. So it's start over. It's a must win. We can't go 1-3 and they go 3-1, and we're 2 games behind after 4 have been played. So it's a real important game, and the Niners will be up for it. And like Jared said earlier, the Rams are a different team. They lost 15 guys from their Super Bowl roster, and their offensive line has really got some questions. Their left tackle retired, and their center is banged up. So we'll put some pressure on Stafford.
Yeah, I think our biggest challenge, I feel really good about the Rams. I feel good at every game so far, but the thing that does scare me is Trent Williams. That's going to be where the game is made or lost, is Trent Williams being out. How we handle that, that's probably, giving the other team 7 points, just missing Trent, on that left guard, so, but Kittle, I think, will be helping them out, and we're going to find ways to get her done. Defensively, Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey that's their defense. On their front line defensively, Aaron Donald's doing the work right now. There's not a whole lot there. They've lost a lot of players. Von Miller's gone. And Jalen Ramsey's roaming out. Jalen Ramsey was a number 1 draft pick, and the Rams got him. I don't know, where did he come from?
Jacksonville.
Hufanga is matching him statistically in the first 3 games. We have Hufanga, who's really matching Jalen Ramsey's stats. I wrote them down there. It's huge. Hufanga has 21 tackles. Ramsey 16. Hufanga has 4 tackles for loss. Ramsey 1. They each have 1 interception, 3 pass deflections. Hufanga for 4 to Jalen Ramsey. I mean, it's crazy. And Ward too, Travarius Ward, almost statistically is very similar to Jalen Ramsey. We got two incredible DBs back there. And then our front line is hands down defensively is number one in the league, on when it comes to the line. So
the best in football.
the best in
What's also interesting when you look at the Rams, they have a total different philosophy as really the rest of the league. And they've traded their first round draft picks for 7 straight years when everybody else treats first round picks as gold. The Rams haven't had a first round draft pick since they drafted Jared Goff out of Cal in 2016. And then a few years later, they traded him and got Stafford. But that's how they got Ramsey, a couple of first round picks. That's how they got Stafford, a couple of first round picks. They traded a first round pick for Brandon Cooks, who's no longer with the team. So they are mortgaging their future for today. And they're gonna run into a couple of problems. So when they are getting all these all-stars, they're gonna have salary cap problems, and they're all gonna get old at one time. Bill Walsh used to say, every year you have to have turnover. You need 10, 12 new guys just to keep your team young. And the Rams haven't done that.
Right. No, it is.
Draft.
It is interesting to see their philosophy, and right or wrong, I'm not sure, but they did win the Super Bowl last year, so they cashed out. If
they did,
which is good for them. They earned it.
But they were lucky. I look at this. The Rams played at home, and they played Cincinnati. They should have played Buffalo or Kansas City. So they lucked out with really a lesser opponent, in my view, and they played at home. I mean, it was just ideal, but they did win the Super Bowl. So we have to give that to them. I just feel they were really fortunate.
Yeah, no, agreed. And, people, look back at all of Tom Brady's success in the AFC, specifically coming out of the AFC East, and try and put that asterisk on his championships as well. And did he come out of the easiest division? Probably. Did he have the bye? Yes, every single time. And so getting to the Super Bowl, especially in such a physical sport like football, it was easier for him than it was for other people.
Right.
So it is interesting. I'm excited about this Rams game, though. I mean, historically, we do match up well against them. We've played, as you said, Grandpa, play well against them. And I as much as I'm a Niners and a Giants fan, and I can't stand the Dodgers, and there is now, I feel like, since the Seahawks have been on their decline, especially now that Russell Wilson isn't there, there's still definitely a rivalry with Seattle, but I feel like the rivalry with LA is stronger than it's ever been. Grandpa, did it used to be like that when the Rams were in LA?
Rivalry with the Rams goes back to 1950, and it was severe. I mean, you hated them, and they manhandled us for many years. In the series, which is now, this is going to be the 147th game. We started in 1950. We basically play them twice a year. And going into the 70s going until Joe Montana showed up in 1981. I mean, he showed up in 79, but we started beating the Rams in the 80s. The Rams were 20 games ahead of us in the series, and now we're like 8 ahead of them. This thing has flip-flopped. We've gained like 28 games on the Rams since 1981. The other thing is, we have played very well on Monday nights. And when you look at the all-time Monday Night Football standings, we're actually have the second most wins. Pittsburgh has 54. We have 50 in second place. Dallas has 49. Miami has 43, and the Rams only have 33. So we play, and Monday night games are against a very tough opponent. They're not gimmies. So we've played very well on Monday nights, and we have 2 Monday night games this year. This next Monday night against the Rams, and then, as you mentioned a while back, Josh, Mexico City against Arizona.
Yeah, looking forward to that one.
Yeah. So, yeah, we play well on Monday nights. We have a very good record, and we've played well against the Rams for many years now. But the rivalry, to answer your question, was severe. I remember growing up as a kid, we would lose, and I just hated the Rams, hated them. And they just beat us all the time in the 50s and 60s and 70s. And then we turned it around in the 80s and 90s. Now, one other point, and so the Rams moved to St. Louis for 21 years, and then I think the rivalry really declined. We weren't playing LA. I mean, a lot of the rivalry is San Francisco and LA. It doesn't matter what team.
Right.
They went to St. Louis for 21 years, and it did decline. I mean, it wasn't as severe.
Well, yeah, and I think part of that, real quick, I think part of that is just the whole aspect of like regional rivalries. That's one of the funnest things about college football, is that you have like regions that are normally pretty close to each other. And so the fans really get involved, and the fans travel to the one place and then travel to the other. And that's why it was kind of weird. Like, how are the St. Louis Rams in the NFC West? And because the fans weren't going out there, and their fans were coming to San Francisco. So I agree, not only from the competitive side of the game, but also from a fan perspective. They definitely became less of a rivalry, but bringing them back is back, and it is back.
Yeah. See, they basically were gone for 21 years. So that was life, Josh. I mean, the Rams were not here. You didn't grow up with a team. I mean, local team. There was San Diego Chargers, but the Rams were in St. Louis for 21 years. So everybody in your age group, all the LA people, I didn't have a team. That's why a lot of them are Raider fans.
Yeah, and a few Charger fans. But yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
One last thing, Grandpa, you put up a slide, you sent us a slide, and I thought it was very interesting, and wouldn't have known that piece of trivia, but the Rams began in Cleveland in 1937. So that is, I think, a really interesting piece of trivia. And they moved to LA in 1946, and that's when that rivalry with the Niners started. So yeah, I thought Cleveland is the original home of the Rams. Yeah, I love that.
The Cleveland Rams. Now, I don't remember that. They played there from 37 to 46, and I was 4 years old then, so I don't remember the Rams being in Cleveland, but that's where they started. And then they played here in LA, where we live, and moved to St. Louis, and now they're back, so they've kind of been a vagabond, a gypsy.
Yeah, and then just appreciate all of our listeners tuning in. So everybody's probably wondering, where are you guys? We Grandpa grew up in the city of San Francisco, born and raised through and through. My mom, which is his daughter, was born in Daly City, just outside the city, while Grandpa was worked for, I guess I don't need to put words in your mouth for Grandpa, but worked for United Airlines out of SFO. And then the short story is that he was then transferred down to LAX and brought the family, of course, settled in Huntington Beach, where the kids, grew up, and my dad ended up meeting my mom down in Orange County, where they have then since settled in Temecula, which is about an hour south or kind of outside of Orange County, and still live today. So we live around LA fans. We live around both Dodgers and Rams fans. So this one it is a rivalry, and I care about this game. I hate seeing the Rams fans. I hate seeing the Dodgers fans. It's fun. It is fun though. And I appreciate them and the good rivalry that it is.
Yeah. And just one little other thing was we moved south in 1970. I all of a sudden discovered the 49ers are not on TV here. The Rams are on TV. So a couple of friends, there were 6 of us, including my good friend Wes, who listens to this. We started a club in Southern California in the 80s. And we went to these different pizza parlors. We got so many members. There were 6 of us. And we went to this pizza place and said, if you show the 49er games every Sunday, and many of them start at 10 a.m., some start at 1 p.m., we will buy more pizza than you sell any day of the week. And so we talked these guys into opening their pizza parlor early on a Sunday morning. And we did that. And then the club grew from 6 to over 300 eventually. And so we got to watch the games on Sunday that really weren't on here. So that was fun. We developed some wonderful relationships that have been lifelong. So anyway.
And then I also think we should take that advantage of this game against the Rams to talk about how, Dad, you played football with JT Snow, who is son of Jack Snow, that played for the Rams. And so tell us a little bit about that. And then, Grandpa, I know you know Jack as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. JT Snow. I went to Los Alamitos High School and played with him. I was a linebacker. He was a defensive back. I was a year ahead of him. And he was also a backup quarterback. So great guy. I got to know him real well. And after I graduated the following season, he was quarterback. Had a great season. He played basketball, baseball, and football. He could do all 3 sports. He was about 6'2", probably 180, 185, kind of could be a guard in basketball, first baseman in baseball, and a quarterback in football. And he and his dad, Jack Snow, who always wore a black leather jacket. He wore sunglasses like the airline pilot sunglasses. He was just the coolest cat you'd ever seen. He'd come to our after parties after football, and anyhow, he was a really nice guy, but kind of tan skin, and he just looked kind of like a movie star guy. But he and JT sat down, tried to figure out what direction, what career athletically would be best for him, where he'd have the most longevity and the most success. And they went with baseball. And obviously he had a Golden Glove career with the Giants. He also played with the Angels. He won a couple World Series, I believe. So anyhow, yeah, he was a great guy. And then Grandpa got to ultimately knew that I knew Jack and I knew JT, and Grandpa got to know Jack Snow through United Airlines running into one another on a flight, I believe.
Yeah, tell us about that, Grandpa. That's a good story.
So my brother lived in the city and he had season tickets, and I would fly up for about half the games. There's 8 home games, so I would fly up for about 4. And this one day, in fact, it was against the Vikings when Steve Young made his 48-yard run at the end of the game. So I'm back at SFO, standing by to get on a flight, and I see Jack Snow come into the boarding area. I would recognize these guys. I would never say anything to them. I didn't want to bother them. And then later, Jerry Kramer came in. He was on the flight as well. He was the guard for Green Bay those years with Vince Lombardi. But anyway, so I eventually get my seat assignment. I get on the airplane and my seat partner is Jack Snow. So I thought, okay, I've got him for an hour. I want to ask him some questions that I've always wanted to know the answers to. And you can tell very quickly if your seat partner wants to talk, and they generally don't. And I respect that. So I was climbing over him to get to my seat, and I said, "Hey, Jack, how you doing?" He goes, "I'm good. How are you?" And I could tell he wanted to talk. So we talked for an hour. I won't go through that stuff, but he maybe another time. And so we're landing in LA, and he said to me, I should mention, he was doing mutual radio for the NFL. So they would, the kind of the best Sunday game, Tony Roberts, who was the Notre Dame radio announcer, play-by-play guy, and Jack Snow would do kind of the best NFL game that Sunday. So every Sunday they were going to a different stadium. So we're landing in LA, and Jack says to me, "Mike, I really enjoyed talking to you." And I said, "Jack, I really enjoyed talking to you." He said, "Would you like to come and sit in the booth with me the next time I'm at Candlestick?" And I said, "That would be the thrill of my life." So I gave him my card, and we walked off the airplane, and I thought to myself, wrongly, I thought, I will never hear from him, but it was a wonderful hour. And about 2 weeks later, he calls me and he says, "I'm doing the game Sunday at Candlestick. Do you want to come and sit in the booth with me?" I said, "You're kidding." And so for the next 8 years, we did that about twice a year. And he would get me a media credential. We became wonderful friends. And then one other quick little side note. So in the radio booth, you have to be totally quiet. And I'm standing behind him. It's a very small area. There's a play-by-play guy. There's a stat guy in the middle, and then the color guy, who was Jack Snow. So I would stand behind Jack, and I mean, there wasn't a lot of room. And he would say, "If you're going to cough or something, go outside. You can't say a word." So after a couple of games, I said to him, because I felt I needed to do something. He's doing this wonderful thing for me. And I said, "Jack, would you like it if I handed you statistics and during the game?" And he looked at me right in the eye and he said, "How do I know they're correct?" And I thought for a minute and I said, "You don't." Because I can't do that, because whenever we make a mistake on the radio, 1,000 people call in and say, "That was wrong. It wasn't in that year, it was this year," or whatever it is. It's got to be accurate. And I said, "Well, it would be accurate, but you don't know me yet." So, so after another couple of games, one day we'd fly up together on the plane and fly back. And so we spent all the whole Sunday together. And he said, "Okay, you can start handing me stuff." And so I had to write it out. Bill Romanowski, that's his third interception in his career. And I hand it to him, and Jack would say it on the radio. And then this one final note, because I have a million little stories with Jack Snow, but this one time we're playing the San Diego Chargers, and it was when Dan Fouts was playing and Joe Montana. And in the first quarter, San Diego marched down the field and scored a touchdown. And then the 49ers scored a touchdown and the quarter was over. And so they broke for commercial, and Jack turns around to me and he says, "Mike, do you ever remember just 2 possessions in a quarter?" I said, "No." So they came back on air, and he says, "I just talked to Mike Casey and he doesn't remember this ever happening before." And the funny part was, I had a friend in Houston, Texas, who used to work in LA. He was a customer of mine, and he was out driving with his wife and listening to the 49er game on mutual radio, and he hears my name. So the next day he calls me. "Now, that wasn't you, was it?" I said, "It was me." So anyway, I have a bunch more Jack Snow. Wonderful man, wonderful guy. He did a lot for me, and it was fun. He would take me around and introduce me to the other announcers, to John Madden. Later, Bill Walsh was doing announcing, Dick Enberg. I met all those guys. Not that I know them, I don't, but I did meet them. So
little more tribute just to Jack Snow. He went to St. Anthony's High School in Long Beach. He went to Notre Dame. He was a consensus All-American, finished 5th in the Heisman Trophy in 1964, was drafted in the first round to the Minnesota Vikings. I mean, this guy lived quite a life, was traded to the Rams, and then had a stellar career with the Rams. I mean, he's synonymous with the Rams in the 60s, Jack Snow. But he was a great guy. And then unfortunately, he died at only the age of 62 in 2005 as the result of a staph infection, I think with the Kansas City Chiefs. Was it the Chiefs compound or?
It was St. Louis. He
St. Louis.
moved to St. Louis to be a Ram announcer. I actually got involved in that and it helped. I wrote a letter to Georgia Frontiere and said, do you know what you have right in front of you? We've got Jack Snow, an all-time player for the Rams. He should be one of your announcers. The next year he was. Not that I had anything to do with it, but yeah, he was a wonderful, wonderful man.
And he really knew football really well. Did he say, did you ever tell him that you were my father-in-law? And
Sure.
Did he remember me and how I played football?
He did. In fact, I told him that on our first flight. Yeah. I said, my son-in-law played with your son at Los Alamitos High. And he said, what was his name? And I said, Jared Jomstead. Oh yeah, Jared was a great linebacker. If he was bigger, he would have been a great college player and probably made the pros. He just wasn't big enough. And Jack Snow said that. Yeah. So that helped pave our way.
Height. Sorry, Dad. Can't teach height.
I know. I was good though. I'm glad Jack remembered me and had good things to say.
Oh, he did for sure. Yeah, big time. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, rest in peace, Jack Snow. And JT, if you're listening to this, you got to come on the show, bro. I'm just
kidding. Right on.
But that would actually be really, really fun. Well, great. Well, this has been super fun. I'm glad we got to spend a little bit of time about that. Let's do our score predictions. So we talked about how this game is going to be pretty evenly matched. The Niners are favored by 1.5. Grandpa, what do you think? What's your score prediction?
Well, I kind of seesawed this week. If you would have asked me this on Monday, I would have said the Rams would win. But I now think the Niners will win 27-24. The Niners are favored. They opened a 2.5 point favorite. I was a little surprised to see that. I was glad to see it, but I was a little surprised. So I have the Niners 27, the Rams 24.
Cool. Dad, what are you thinking?
I'm thinking it's going to be a little tight. I'm going 49ers 21, Rams 17.
That's exactly what I said.
Is that right?
Niners 21, Rams 17. Correct. I think it's going to be a little low scoring, or it would be different. Maybe I'll say Niners 20, Rams 17. I think it's going to be a little bit lower scoring. We'll hold them back. We'll hopefully not hold ourselves back too much. But my kind of prediction for the game is that there's going to be a very big defensive play. Not sure what that is, but a turnover, pick six, something of that. That's going to be the difference maker, and it's going to be in our favor this week.
So right now, Matthew Stafford has thrown 4 touchdown passes. He has 5 interceptions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So maybe a pick 6
would be awesome. Ooh. One of my favorite pick sixes I've ever watched. Once again, I'm a big Fred Warner fan. Was, I believe, also on Monday Night Football, and where they were thrown out to the flat. I think it was Jared Goff was thrown out to the flats, and Fred Warner read it like a book and picked it off and ran it in for a touchdown. That was a good one.
Yeah, they're all good. So we need to get some turnovers. We're -1 on the year now after last week's 3
Yep.
that went the other way.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Well, great episode of 49ers Family. Appreciate everybody for listening, joining in. I'll have more for you next week. And once again, if you have any feedback, questions, hot takes, email us 49ers Family podcast at gmail.com. That's with 49ERS. All right. Until next time, go Niners.
Go Niners. Go Niners.